Did Hogwarts Legacy deliver on the promises it sold us? After the hype train got started for Hogwarts Legacy, I decided to stay off of it. The gaming community had been burned too many times by overhyped titles. But could it be that Hogwarts Legacy actually lived up to the hype? That is what I will give my opinion on in this video. Having played through the game, I will review the main quest, companion quests, gameplay, the world, and the side content to give you an idea of whether or not Hogwarts Legacy actually lived up to the hype. Before we get into the rest of the video, a little warning, there will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't played Hogwarts Legacy yet and you do not want to be spoiled, now is the time to click away. With that out of the way, let's begin. First of all, the game is set up in 1890. You will play a 5th year transfer coming into Hogwarts. The fact that they set it up in 1890 was a really smart choice in my opinion, because it allows them not to be bothered with the existing stories too much while still using the world that was created. After reading a letter explaining all of this, the game leads you to character creation. The character creation is alright, but it really does not push the envelope on what is possible today. It does its job well enough, but certainly isn't anything to write home about. The game also prompts you to choose a first and last name, which I thought was kind of odd, especially since they are never really used in the game, so the last name is more of a gimmick than anything important. Following character creation, the game takes you immediately into a conversation with your mentor, Professor Fig, who will come up again and again until the end of the game. The story overall is fine and does its job well enough. I'm not going to detail it here, other people have done great videos detailing the story, but I will touch on some points that I would like to discuss. I thought the pensive scenes were some of the best. They always brought great backstory, and Isadora, who went off track quite a bit as we learned by the end of the game, was very relatable as she wanted to do good and ended up doing more harm than good. Isadora as an antagonist was much more intriguing than Ranrock or Rookwood ever were to me. Rookwood was almost completely useless the whole game. I often wondered why he was even here apart from being a mid-game boss fight. His death was not even satisfying. Ranrock as an antagonist is alright, it does the job, but he's definitely not incredible and never pulled me into the story. I always found the bits of stories in the pensive the most captivating parts of the game. The ending sequence was probably the best part of the main quest and did a great job finishing up the game. It also features one of the few choices that will actually have an impact, even if it is a small impact. Overall, I thought the story was decent, but definitely not the strong point of Hogwarts Legacy, and I feel it could have done a much better job. The characters' deaths, apart from Professor Fig, felt unimpactful, which was a missed opportunity in my opinion. Something else that was annoying was that after the main quest was basically over, the game does not roll the credits, but asks you to get to level 34 before you can finish the game. It just really felt anticlimactic and felt like an artificial way to lengthen the game. Moving on to the companion quests. You have 3 companions in Hogwarts Legacy: Sebastian, Natty, and Poppy. All 3 quests are pretty well done and fleshed out. My personal favorite was Sebastian's quest, as his sister's story makes him really relatable and understandable, even though he completely goes off the rails in the end. His side quest also features a choice that actually matters, because in the end I was able to basically banish him to Azkaban for killing his uncle. Poppy's companion quest was probably my second favorite. The poachers are not really a different enough enemy to feel unique, but the fact that Poppy was born in a poacher's camp makes the whole thing a lot more interesting and really elevates her story to me. Natty's companion quest was the weakest of the 3 in my opinion. It was still good, but definitely did not draw me in as much as the 2 others. The fact that she blames herself for her father's death makes her a bit more interesting, but her whole companion quest revolves around this and trying to hunt down someone named Sallow. I was so uninvested in this quest that I don't even remember why we were hunting him down. But it turns out that after Natty jumps in front of a Crucio spell for you, you immediately feel guilty about it, and this provides her the insight that she needs to stop blaming herself for her father's death. Overall, all 3 companion quests are pretty nicely fleshed out, and I feel like they add a lot to the game. I often found myself looking forward to learning more about my companions, which proves that they did a good job, and it did not feel like something that was annoying to go through. The combat is based on a combo system in which you pair several spells and basic attacks to make a long combo that rewards you with ancient magic. It's quite simple to understand and very effective. One thing is that I could see it becoming quite redundant if you played a game for a long time. By the end of my playthrough, I had settled on one rotation of spells that I would just do over and over again. The difficulty lies in the number of enemies the game throws at you rather than just one enemy being more difficult than another. Overall, the combat does a decent job and is more than enough to be entertaining and fun for the duration of the game. But if you want to play longer or just explore and keep fighting, you will most likely be disappointed because it felt quite shallow. Another criticism that I have is that you have spell presets that you make, and switching between them mid-fight, at least on PC, was an absolute nightmare for me. Which is another reason why I ended up sticking to one spell set and just doing the same spell rotation over and over again. Overall, if you want a challenging combat experience, you might be able to find it with higher difficulties. Still, the combat to me was more fun than challenging, and I think that is the best way I can summarize it in my opinion. The open world is the highlight of the game for me. You can tell that they really put some effort into making this whole world come to life in a believable way. There are Easter eggs everywhere and a bunch of cool places to explore, whether inside or outside the castle. One thing to note is that most of the NPCs are basically transparent and you cannot interact with them. It was a bit weird at first, but I got used to it quite quickly, but definitely a bit jarring, and it can take you out of the immersion. There are many things to do out in the world, a variety of puzzles and collectibles everywhere, each different enough not to feel like a copy-paste mess. I will talk about some of my favorite things I did in the world. Keep in mind, there's much more than what I will talk about, but I consider those either lackluster or not bringing much to the table other than something to do. So if I don't talk about it, it's because I consider it not worth talking about. First of all, there are the treasure vaults. They usually require the use of different spells and game mechanics and are often the hardest puzzles in the game, although I would not consider them hard on the grand scale of things, but harder than the usual puzzle you will encounter. The treasure vaults offer a good challenge and are a cool place to explore. Then, there are the numbers chamber puzzles. Or at least, that's what I call them because I have no idea what these are actually called. They are little puzzles that are not hard to figure out, but the first time I came across one of those, I had no indication as to what to do, so it was a whole lot of trial and error, which was quite a lot of fun for a while. Then I discovered what you were supposed to do, and since they are all the same type of puzzles, none of them were really a challenge after that, but still, a fun bit of head scratching at the beginning of the game. Revelio pages are another highlight of the open world. When you cast Revelio and a codex page is near, you get a little bell sound in the direction of the page, which is a nice little treasure hunt by itself. But on top of that, when you collect the page, it will give you a little bit of lore about what you are looking at, which I always enjoy. It's a simple thing, but it can really bring a lot to the table. Merlin trials were another highlight of the open world when I played. Always fun to stumble upon and solve, but a trudge to do them back to back to back. Since there are so many of them, that is what I ended up doing at the end of the game to reach level 34, and I think it soured my experience of them a bit. On top of the fact that you cannot skip the animation that pops up when you complete them. The puzzles that make up the Merlin trials are fun, and I didn't count, but there are probably between 5 and 10 different puzzles types in the Merlin trials, which were always nice to try and understand how they work and what you should do. Another thing that populates the open world are what I call Lumos paintings. They're a cool addition to the game, and often something I would stumble upon rather than actually try to solve, but still a cool way to interact with the world and explore. I like the premise of showing you a place to go and grab a butterfly to solve the puzzle. One last thing I want to touch on is flying. Flying on a broom feels really good. Brooms are very easy to control and steer, but flying on a hippogriff or thestral is an absolute nightmare. They're very slow to respawn and summon, as well as big and bulky, meaning you can't always go where you want to go. And overall, no speed advantage, at least that I could tell, over the broom, so I tended to stick to the broom. The same thing goes for the land mount, except that it is even worse than the hippogriff because it can't fly, so overall, the mounts other than the broom were a cool idea, but their implementation felt really lackluster. The side quests are there. They don't really give any massively good reward or experience, and they try to attach a story to each one, but none of them really stuck with me and were memorable. The highlights of the side quests were the challenge ones, such as the Summoner's Courts, the Dueling Club, or the Flying Challenges. Imelda Reyes from the Flying Challenges was probably the side character that stuck with me the most outside of my companions and the characters attached to my companions. She seemed like there was more to her than just someone there to challenge you to fly faster than her on a course. Even though she does not get much time to shine, they still made it seem like there was more to her than just a frustrated Quidditch player, which was a nice feeling. When it comes to the Room of Requirements, I think it was a great idea, but the execution was quite poor. In my opinion, it got tiring to come back to the room of requirement every 10 or 15 minutes to collect my potions and plants and take care of my magical beasts. I think they should have added a way to take care of that from a centralized screen for the people that do not want to fast travel every time. Otherwise, I think the amount of customization and things you can do in there is amazing and the vivariums are really well done. My main problem is how frustrating it got for me to have to go back to collect my things. Luckily, I played on normal difficulty, so I did not have to use the room of requirements too much, but I still wanted to see what it had to offer. I think that if you play on a higher difficulty and start needing battle plants and more potions, then you would potentially need to use the room of requirements a lot more, and I'm not sure I would be willing to put up with that. Technically, the game is not flawless. Issues of the clipping of capes happen constantly, to the point of being almost comical. Some face animations really need some work. Most of the time, the face animation makes sense and are accurate considering the situation, but sometimes my character would make a pained smile as if he was constipated or something, in a moment of sadness or seriousness, which was just really weird. Other than that, there are some areas that also suffer from FPS issues and clearly need some work in terms of optimization, especially Hogsmeade. I think a lot of these issues might occur because the devs are pushing Unreal Engine 4 to the absolute limit, and honestly, props to them for making a game that looks this good and runs decently well on what is now almost an outdated engine. Unfortunately, the developers did not really have a choice as Unreal Engine 5 was not out when they started development. One thing of note is that I never had any crashes or game-breaking bugs. I never even had to reload to correct a bug, or at least not that I can remember. And for a game this big, I'm sure there's a lot of luck involved for me to not encounter any major bugs, but it still proves that the developers put a lot of time into trying to make this a smooth experience. Overall, did Hogwarts Legacy manage to live up to the hype? I would say yes. Don't get me wrong, the game is not perfect, but I think considering expectations were sky high, they managed to deliver the game that people wanted. A game that immerses you in the world of Harry Potter, and actually feels believable. The recreations of Hogwarts and its surroundings are really well done, and although I'm sure some people will find something to criticize, I think they did a good job staying faithful to the material that they had. The lore is present everywhere, especially with the Codex pages, and I can't say anything is missing apart from maybe Quidditch. Still, I think the devs made the right decision for Quidditch because I can definitely see how if Quidditch were not up to par with the rest of the game, it would have taken away from the game rather than be a cool addition. So the devs did a great job in my opinion with scope creep and not letting that dictate what they wanted to do with the game. I know I've been very critical of the game in this video. Still, overall, the combat is a lot of fun and the story did a decent enough job to keep me engaged, even though it fails in numerous areas. But the true highlight of this game to me is the world, how real it feels, and how well they incorporated gameplay into this world. Hogwarts Legacy is not perfect, but it managed to deliver a finished game with no microtransactions at all. How many times have you been able to say that about a AAA game in the past few years? Yes, there are optimization issues, especially in Hogsmeade and a couple of places in the castle itself, and I hope they will fix those sooner rather than later. Still, overall, the game is strong and I think it deserves the praise it is getting. For once, it feels like the game reviewers actually gave it the rating it deserved, a solid 7.5 out of 10 for me. And I would highly recommend playing Hogwarts Legacy, especially if you are a fan of the universe. On this note, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Remember that this is only my opinion about this game, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of things to say about it. So leave a comment down below and share your opinion on this game, and I will be happy to discuss it with you guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye bye.